Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our forum today. First of all, I would like to thank all of the audience in front of me. Thank you very much for attending the forum for today. My name is Muhammad Arif Aiman bin Azlan, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we begin our forum, let me introduce to all of you about our panel for tonight, because most of them have a lot of knowledge and also experience about this topic that we will discuss. Starting from my right is our specially invited Professor Adibah, a head of Faculty of Health Science from University Technology Mara, Cawangan Puncak Alam, UiTM Palang. Beside her is Dr. Nur Haziqah. She is a senior lecturer from University Science Malaysia Kelantan, USM. Meanwhile, on my left, we have Dr. Wanur Afifah, a senior lecturer from University Malaysia Pahang, UNIMAP. Last but not least, on the other left, we have Cikgu Diyana Nur Ashikin, a chairman of the English Committee. Thank you to our entire panel that make the time to be part of our forum today. Our issue for today is online learning versus face-to-face learning. The main reason why we discuss this topic is because it's happening all over the world. As the world is currently facing the pandemic COVID-19, Minister of Education has come out with one agreeable solution on how students should continue their studies. They have stipulated that students need to learn through a method which is online distance learning, ODL. Without further ado, let's begin our forum today with Professor Adibah. So, Professor Adibah, what do you have to say about online learning?
Thank you, Encik Arif, for the question. For this topic, I believe that online learning is an effective way of learning, especially during the pandemic. So, why do I say this? Firstly, online learning is a flexible learning. Researchers have found that learners perceive flexibility and convenience as strength of online learning environments. In such environments, students can spend time on class projects on their own terms, namely without having to be physically there. Through bulletin boards, chat rooms, electronic mail, and whiteboards, students can communicate with their instructor and with each other at any time. Students select distance education to suit their social and work commitments. Generally are people who, because of time, geography, financial considerations, family obligations, and work requirements or other constraints, choose not to attend traditional classroom. Regardless of where they live, students have equal access to quality courses through the web. At times, students have flexibility in when and where they take needed courses, and school can expand their options. Other group of students that prefer distance education are rural students, sick or hospitalized children, gifted children, traveling families, and students who have problems in attending a regular classroom. With this amount of flexibility, it is unsurprising that a greater percentage of students with special needs enroll in distance education programs. My second point is that online learning allows students to develop a critical thinking skills. Critical thinking is the process of conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and/or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflections, reasoning, or communication. Researchers suggest that students in an online learning environment can develop critical thinking skills as well as reflection skills. Conrad and Donaldson in 2004 argue that collaborative activities in online learning environments that involve students' idea sharing and other forms of interaction trigger deeper processing of content. Palov and Pratt in 2005 also point out that group work in online learning environments promotes transformative learning by developing critical thinking skills and by encouraging reflection. The asynchronous environment allows students to read messages, reflect on them, and write carefully about their ideas over time. As a result, students may receive more thoughtful and in-depth comment from their classmates than what might occur in a synchronous context. In other study, Thomas in 2002 observes that online discussion forums promoted high level of cognitive engagement and critical thinking. Students confirm these findings when they note that online discussions allow them the time to develop their own responses and give them time to think about points made by their peers and time to decide how they felt about a certain issues.
Alright, Prof. Adibah, thank you for the informative talk that you have delivered. So, Dr. Wan, do you have anything to ask about Prof. Adibah's speech?
Okay, I do have a question for Professor Adibah. Okay, regarding your second point, at a certain explanation, I agree with it as online discussion or activity to initiate high level of cognitive engagement and critical thinking, as the instructors will always try to involve their student to participate in it. So, can you give further explanation on the phrase of the time to develop their own responses?
Thank you for the question. So what I mean by the phrase of time to develop their own responses is, in asynchronous discussion, which is an online discussion, students have more time to think, reflect, review notes, and reading prior to postings, compared to face-to-face discussions where interaction is perhaps more spontaneous and less effective. Mayer in 2003 indicate that students spend more time on reflections in online discussions compared with their face-to-face discussions. This will allow them to give quality opinions in the discussions.
Thank you, Prof. Adibah and Dr. Wan. It seems that online learning proved to be helpful in developing critical thinking skills for students. Next, we move on to Dr. Haziqah. Dr. Haziqah, how do you think online learning improves students individually?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, to add some point about what Dr. Adibah has said, is that I think online learning might be benefit for students as it will be a practice on individual learning processes, where the self-regulation of learning is an important characteristic of e-learning courses, where the students may receive ample opportunities to practice and apply what they are learning. Then, the student also will be able to work at their own pace throughout much of the day or at home. Okay, for example, for the students, they also have choice regarding the time, place, and the regulation of learning processes in general. In addition, students can also process material in accordance with their individual preference at any time and from any place. Thus, they may also select and examine material from a large pool of information. Okay, as we can see in the current study and research, students advocate e-learning components not only for its flexibility with regard to time and place. They also appreciated online component for their possibilities for exercising and applying one knowledge and for applying metacognitive self-regulation strategies, such as monitoring one's learning progress. And then in a study also, the student from Austrian University reported a high degree of satisfaction with their course and gave favorable evaluation of e-learning in their universities. Okay, then the second point is that the instructors and students have advantages on learning environment, management system, and also technologies, where in e-learning, the quality of the learning environment will contribute in part to the success of the course. The ease of using a learning management system may also affect course satisfaction and also performance. Okay, from the research finding, the participants of the current study, which includes the students of Austrian University, gave clear evaluation on which learning objectives and learning processes are better supported by online components, where those findings are discussed according to the 5 fields such as course design, interaction among students, interaction between students and instructors, support of individual learning processes, and also learning outcomes. The learning management becomes smooth as the instructors and students may achieve fast exchange between students and the instructors or between peer learners. It is a result by the general structure of e-learning courses where the instructor will support the learning and communication among the students, and because of that, they will be more dependent on each other. Next, it also allows students to be ready and gives teachers the opportunity for early intervention when students show signs of struggling. Thus, with the online learning management system, the teacher can also work with students in small group or individually. Last but not least, the student will also complete the course with newly acquired marketable skills and exposure to the value of community service.
Thank you, Dr. Haziqah, for your entertaining speech. Cikgu Diyana, do you have anything to ask or share to Dr. Haziqah?
Thank you to Mr. Moderator. I have a question to Professor Haziqah. In order to succeed in online education, the students must be highly self-motivated and disciplined. There is no control of learning as the student who decides what to study and when to study. In this case, what if the students become careless, neglect the fact that they have to study and have no motivation in their studies? Thank you.
Okay, thank you Ms. Diyana for your opinion. So, to be exact, I partly agree with your point, where the students must be trained on being self-disciplined for them to be successful in the online learning. So, that's why there are mentoring sessions between students and lecturers in certain subjects. It is because to help the students who are having problem or struggling to learn. So, based on your question, in my opinion itself, the student should have a good support either from family, lecturers, or even friends. Then, they also should reflect themselves each time they will feel like lost, demotivated, and another else in studies. Okay, for example, they should have think about the advantages or benefits that they will get when they complete the studies with the excellent grades. For instance, they will get a better job and also they will get a good future. So those reasons might be one of the cause for them to motivate and boost themselves to study better for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Haziqah, for your informative sharing. So, Dr. Wen, what is your thought regarding to face-to-face learning?
Okay, my first point is engagement between instructors and students are better during face-to-face learning. According to the researchers, face-to-face communication is the most effective way to deliver instructions because it allows the participants to provide visual cues and verbal feedback as well as communicate via body language. Consequently, the frequent instructions increase the learners' motivations to learn. Face-to-face training model, frequently referred to as workshops, seminars, presentations, or training program, is held in a group setting, large or small, where participants engage in frequent and ongoing interaction with each other. Overall, 80% of the first reason and 37% of the second reasons the participant gives to illustrate the benefits of in-class activities fitted this theme of more engagement and immediate feedback. Face-to-face discussion allowed better flow of conversation, provided a more personal setting in which to enjoy the discussion, and encourage a greater range of opinion from the group. Students are encouraged to ask questions and contribute their personal anecdotes and teacher stories throughout the class. This provides opportunities for feedback and engagement and motivated the learners who is afraid to attempt a task due to failures to persist and finish the task. For example, small and large group presentations in the face-to-face format provide a platform for the participants to observe and model others and gain confidence to express their opinions and thoughts. Interactions that occur in the face-to-face learning is crucial for learning, and online learning may not provide the same opportunity. Okay, for the second point, face-to-face learning gives a sense of community to the students. Sense of community is a feeling that members have of belonging, a feeling that members matter to one another and the group, and a shared faith that members' need will be met through their commitment to be together. There are also reasons for which students might prefer more traditional in-class activities. Although the social connectedness can be derived online, most students feel that face-to-face contact is essential for building a sense of community. Even when classes are only partially online, students feel that online discussion detracts from this feeling of community with their peers and tutor. According to the situated learning theories, learning is a social practice in which learning, thinking, and knowing involve the whole persons. For example, cognition, emotion, and social relations, and memberships and active participation in various communities of practice. Face-to-face learning makes social comparison, judging oneself with other learners in the environment. Communication between two groups becomes more interesting and animated, and creates an atmosphere of closeness between them. The students felt more engaged when activities were completed in the social environment of a classroom setting rather than online. The interactions of face-to-face classes encourage learning in a way that could not be achieved via the solitary completion of the activity.
Thank you, Dr. Wan, for the enlightening explanation. What about you, Professor Adibah? Do you agree with Dr. Wan's point of view?
I agree to a certain extent, but usually, face-to-face classes are being carried out in big groups, which are often driven by just a few individual students, and sometimes perceived as threatening by students. What steps can be taken to increase students' participation and produce a better learning outcome?
Okay, thank you, Professor Adibah, for your questions. Okay, according to the situated learning theories, learning is a social practice in which learning, thinking, and knowing involve the whole persons, and membership and active participation in various communities of practice. Such a reciprocal and active relationship between learners and their place and participation in the communities of practice calls for providing supportive, enriched, and flexible community settings for people to learn in. Having strong social networks within a classroom, within a school, and between classroom and outside resources should provide students with multiple sources of knowledge that can then facilitate multiple and flexible zones of proximal development.
Thank you, Dr. Wan. I'm pretty sure that two-way communication is really important to be practiced in our daily life. So, Cikgu Diyana, do you have anything to claim about face-to-face learning?
Thank you to Mr. Moderator. Next, I will share my first point, which is face-to-face learning provide conventional classroom socialization. Students stated that the importance of face-to-face communication as the most important reason for preferring the current program model. They regarded face-to-face communication as more conducive to the learning process, affording better opportunity to sharing knowledge and asking for help without have to wait for a response time. Thus, students in face-to-face classroom settings also can see and work with one another and get to know each other well through the learning process. Also, face-to-face communication including contact perception, eye contact, and a parallel visual and gesture information. Thus, research studies have indicated that the importance of face-to-face interaction and quality of education can be achieved by incorporating computer technology and face-to-face interaction. However, performance and homework submission was found to be higher in classroom students. Without wasting more time, I will proceed to my second point, which is academic institution able to deliver educational content effectively. Face-to-face teachers are able to introduce a significant degree of local interpretation for imported educational materials to their students. Being in close with students, they are in a position to know how much these materials may require and can achieve a balance in the use of various types of material according to students' level, interest, language skills, and so on. The relationship between students and face-to-face teachers is crucial in making foreign materials relevant to students. In addition, teachers' body language and cultural insight provide students with complex information in the form of interactive learning, demonstration, and improvisation are a fundamental part of a good learning experience. In author's perspective, face-to-face learning fully engages students academically, physically, socially, emotionally, and interactively. To explain this, researchers reported in their quantitative research that students in the face-to-face section have statistically significantly higher exam scores and statistically greater improvement on the post-test instructor question.
Thank you, Cikgu Diyana. Dr. Haziqah, do you agree with Cikgu Diyana's point?
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more that communication become one of the reasons for a successful learning. However, I personally believe that with online learning, they can still communicate with each other through the mobilities, and it will avoid them in wasting the time when having a discussion or a meeting. Thus, online learning also gives opportunities for students to exchange socio-emotional information such as engagement, motivation, and satisfaction that may influence them. Okay, I have a question for you. Can you give some opinion and good suggestion on the passive students who have problems in their social and communication skills during the face-to-face learning, either with teachers or with their friends? Thank you.
Thank you to Professor Haziqah. So, according to Raja Bali, Santali and Reni on 2019, based on literature, one of the critical components of quality education nowadays is to ensure learner engagement. That is, the need to effectively measure learner engagement is imperative to determine the performance and successful achievement of learners. In my perspective, face-to-face learning is an approach in which both student and teacher are present and actively involved in the learning and teaching processes and activities in the classroom environment. Thus, successful students in face-to-face learning must actively listen and participate in class, involve more lecture and dialogue-based learning exercise, and plan on getting information and feedback about their performance whenever they attend to class. This will lead to two-way conversation between the student with teacher or their friends. That's all from me.
Thank you, panels, for a very interesting and informative talk. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the Q&A session of our forum. So, for the first question, Prof. Adibah, is there any ways we can improve online learning qualities?
There are several ways to improve online learning quality. Firstly, educators, such as lecturers and teachers, should be well equipped with knowledge about technology used for the online learning. Next, ensuring the security and reliability of the technological environment is important for online learning, since this will enable smoother interactions. In addition, helping students feel comfortable with the system and with the software that they are using will also assist with the online interactions of the group.
Thank you, Prof. Adibah. For the second question, Dr. Wan, do you agree that online learning can be as good as face-to-face learning?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for your questions. Okay, for the question, do you agree that online learning can be as good as face-to-face learning? Okay, for this question, I do agree with that. I do agree that online learning can be as good as face-to-face learning. This is because this depends on the instructors and students themselves, as can they adapt themselves in the new setting or new norm. Okay, for the instructors, they may have to lead the students to the new environment for them to study. And for the students, they have to really balance their time for the studies and work at home.
Ladies and gentlemen, finally we have come to the end part of our forum. As a conclusion, I believe that online learning can be as good as face-to-face learning. It is up to student and lecturer or teacher to fully utilize the resources that they have during learning session. I hope everyone here would take part and involve themselves to make online learning easier for our future generation. Lastly, I would like to thank all our panels and audience for making our forum today a success.